Guys, let's just go live. I just posted this is a little sneaky of me. I just posted a image saying that the live show starts in 15 minutes, and yet it started now. So if you can just even imagine the hilarium of that. I'm pouring the tea. We're starting this off slow. We're like a steam engine here at the live show. I pick up momentum as I start to talk. So this is the gentle part. We're gonna start with a sip of tea. I've just poured this piping hot tea. Mm. It's Friday. Next weekend is Bay's birthday, which I'm excited for. I've got a secret surprise planned, a couple surprises planned, and I like surprises, and I like I enjoy giving gifts a lot these days, and that did not used to be the case. The way gifts used to be for me was a crushing fear of causing disappointment or letdown. So and really what was happening is when I thought about giving a gift, I thought all about the other person's reaction or what they might make receiving a gift mean, or like all of this, there was all of this like me trying to predict the future. And so then giving a gift was fraught. It was really fraught with all of this stuff. Morning, LA. Nice to see you. Fraught with all of this kind of stuff that I felt I had to manage. So like, oh my God, I'd like to give them this gift, but what meaning will they attach to receiving this gift? What are they going to make it mean that I gave them this gift? Will they feel like I'm trying to flaunt my wealth? Will they feel like I should have spent more money? Are they going to feel like they're selfish because they didn't give me the gift? Or are they just going to feel like, oh, that's what he got me? That sucks. I wish I got something better. So thing is, all of that exists in the future. It's made up. And I have no way of validating any of it. I don't know any of that stuff. And so giving a gift, it provoked a lot of anxiety for me. I really would get worried about it. And so in my family, the solution we created was creating lists of stuff you want. Here's the stuff on my birthday list. I'd love anything from there. And that way it kind of, in theory, sort of manages that. It eliminates all of that. But because then I don't have to worry about what you're going to make the gift mean. You've asked for it, so I just give it to you. That's not really what a gift is. A gift is something given freely without any attachment. And the best, most fun way to give a gift, at least for me, I've discovered, is just to trust what I feel. So if I think it'd be awesome to give someone a gift, I give them that gift, and I don't worry so much about it. And so in creating this relationship to giving gifts, which has taken quite a while, it's giving gifts has shifted from being one of the more stressful things for me to one of the most delightful things. And so I've got a couple things planned for Bay's birthday I'm really excited about. That's the future though. That's next weekend. Morning, Raphael. Sunny out here, I'll tell you what. The heat wave continues. We're not doing too bad heat wave wise. We're up to high 20s, I think, is what's projected for us. So that's not really a big deal. We can all handle that. It's when it gets down to like, or up to, we had 40 and I think even 44, 41, something thereabouts, just unbearable. We couldn't even function. And it's really hard to sleep when it's that hot. It made me sort of be like, oh, I get why people do siesta. I get why they do fiestas too, because margaritas are delicious. But like, really understand why siestas got created. It's not like you'd sleep; you just lie down in the shade and do nothing because it's just so stinking hot. Um, Here's a book I'm reading right now. I'm going to talk about this before we start to get into our juicy topics. We're a little early, so we don't have a lot of people. I'm going to blame it on being early. That's why there's only two people watching. Guys, you here with me, we're the early risers. And then there's going to be a drove of people, like 50 people are going to join us. We'll have 50 consecutive viewers, and I will be awesome, and I will have value and worth at that point. So this book with a beautiful cover, I really like the cover, by Sadhguru. The title of the book is Karma. This is what I'm reading right now. Sadhguru is the author. You may have come across Sadhguru. This is what he looks like. That's a dope ass beard, you have to admit. He does a lot of videos, meditation. He's a yogi and a guru, I suppose. And he's a very wise man. And I've watched some of his stuff. And one of the men I used to do practice in the morning with, men's work practice. We would sometimes follow Sadhguru's meditations and sit through that. And so this book was sent to me by a guy named Manoj, who is someone I met. Manoj and I have a cool journey together. I met him at an intensive that I was leading in LA, and he came and talked to me and was asking me about coaching and training, and like, I think I want more. And I was like, well, I think I know the training that you're really looking for. If you'd like, I'm happy to talk with you about it, support you through that. And so for him, living in Singapore, the training I was talking about was accomplishment coaching, which is all the way in the United States of America. So the closest he was going to be able to get to was like New York kind of area. And at the time, this was pre-COVID, so there was no virtual program. You either come here and you train with us or you don't. That's what we have to offer. And so he and I, and then he and some other people were in conversation with him to support him, seeing what was possible for himself in doing this work and then overcoming his objections, as opposed to being like, well, New York's really far to travel, so I guess I just won't do that. More on this in a sec, because this is a really important distinction about creating possibility in your life versus getting stopped. And so miraculously, Manoj did this. He took this on and traveled from Singapore to New York every month. One weekend every month he was in New York, and he shared it was just brutal. The time difference was absolutely ruthless, and he thought it was terrible and all of that sort of stuff. And but he said it was absolutely worth it. So it's brutal, not to be underestimated, completely worth it. And so Manoj is on his side of the world doing some really great work as a coach. If you go through the archives of this show, you can see an episode where I coach him live. And he sent me this book as a gift, as a thank you, just saying, hey, I thought, one, I wanted to send to you as a token of gratitude, which I always love receiving. And two, he thought, I'd love to hear how you see karma, the Eastern version of karma, interacting with kind of coaching and the work we do. So that's how this book came to be. Raf says, Sadhguru is awesome. I love what he's doing. And he rides a motorcycle, which adds to his coolness factor. Yes, indeed. I do. I mean, in India, I get the sense like everyone rides scooters. And I wonder if riding a motorcycle is much of a step as it is here in the West, where maybe we don't all ride scooters to begin with, so then a motorcycle is like a bigger step for us, getting off the four wheels. I don't know, but it is pretty badass of him. So what I find as I read this, well, first of all, it confirms a lot of how the notion of karma has slowly evolved in my own mind, meaning uneducated. I've not sat and talked to any gurus. I've not done any studying of karma. I have this loose idea of it. And then as I've done my own work in the lineage of my work and trained with masters, sat in teachings, been in a process of like discovery and stuff like that for myself, I've noticed and discovered how we basically how the law of attraction works, which is to suggest like the energy we are shaped as, the shape of our energetic resonance. That's a bunch of jargon. Let's see if I can get that a little more clarity. Hey, Andrea. The way I show up with the world is going to determine the way the world shows up with me. What I put out, I will get back. The simplest example of this is that if I have a story that the world is filled with liars and cheats, then I'm going to go into the world looking and on guard for liars and cheats. And then whenever someone does something that looks or occurs even a little bit like lying and cheating, I'm hypervigilant to it. So I'm going to be like, well, there they are. There's one more example of them lying and cheating. And so the more I am convinced people are liars and cheaters, the more I'm naturally going to see that in the world, the more I'm going to draw those people to me. And ironically, the more inclined I'm going to be to lie and cheat in my blind spots, because I'm going to hold it like, well, everyone else is fucking lying and cheating, so I think it's actually, frankly, okay for myself to get away with this here. And we start to create exceptions because, hey, everyone else is doing it, blah, blah, blah. Whereas if I let's say I'm going to encounter the exact same scenario, but the way I'm showing up in the world is that everyone's doing their best. That's the context I have for how people are and all of that. Then when someone shows up in a way that same way as before that might have occurred to that first person as like lying and cheating, I might kind of look at them and be like, maybe they just forgot. Maybe I'm going to relate to them through the best I can ascribe to them. So maybe instead of lying and cheating, maybe they're just caught. Maybe they're scared. Maybe they got fearful and didn't know how to bring this to me, and consequently, they then did that thing and kind of hid this from me. They're not actually trying to cheat me. They just don't know how to be. They don't know how to show up honestly with me. I want to be clear. These are just beliefs I create. It's not like we're changing what's happening over here. We can't know what's happening over here until we get over there and ask the person. And so then that is going to have me relate to that person a bit more generously, which then might have that person more willing to share with me what's actually going on, which is then going to be a self-fulfilling prophecy of its own nature. And it's going to have me see like, oh yeah, they weren't lying or cheating. They were just scared and didn't know how to be. Okay, great. I'm so glad we worked that out. We forged better relationship, more trust is built, blah, blah, blah. And consequently, I'm going to be less inclined to lie and cheat myself because I'm holding that we're all doing our best. And that is going to kind of encourage me to do my best. So that is from that lens is how I've come to understand karma, which is like it's not this thing out there holding a gavel, banging me on the head. It's not this idea that like if you do wrong in the world, then somehow, some way, the matrix of possibility is going to like come back and form into a fist and punch you in the head with a bunch of protons. That's not karma. That's not the idea at all. The idea is very much akin to what I've just described. It's that how we show up in the world has natural consequences, and those consequences may not be immediately obvious to us, but they still come back to us. And that's the nature of karma. That's really all there is to it. Well, that's it in its simplest form. Hey, Ruth, good morning. But that gives you kind of the rough idea. And so this book, morning, Mara, this book, Karma, does a beautiful job of explaining that. And then let's turn this heat up, or this fan up. There we go. It's hot. And that gives you like a rough idea. And then he goes far deeper into it. He talks about, for example, the 8 forms of memory. So the 8 forms of memory, 4 of them are collective and 4 of them are individual. So the first 3 forms are like, I'm going to get this wrong. Don't directly quote me on this, but it's sort of like atomic, molecular, whatever, which is to say like atoms follow a pattern. There's a degree of memory to that. And that pattern has a certain sort of thing go on. And we're all collectively a part of that. There's not much we can do about that. And then there's, once you get up to these first 3 levels, then the next level is something like cultural memory, as he calls it. And so your cultural patterning would be an example of that might be like the States, the United States of America was founded at a time when the primary concern was of a nation state, England, out there coming and invading you and taking away your liberty. And so consequently, the Constitution of the United States has a lot of provisions, and it's been interpreted a lot in alignment with that. That's why part of the reason like individual liberty is, you can see this is really, really, really important. It's a core value in the United States of America. So that the country was confederated along those principles. That was part of what was a resultant in the founding of it. Hey, Mia, nice to have you with us. Good evening. At the same time, Canada was founded more, one of the primary concerns was this idea that if Upper Canada, which I think was Quebec, and Lower Canada, which was Ontario, that's 2 of our biggest provinces, one French speaking, one English, because they were founded as colonies after they stole the land from First Nations. We're not going to go down that path today. But they were founded, one from France, one from England. And so when Canada confederated as a whole, one of the primary concerns was, how do we preserve the cultures that are here? There's a real concern like, well, our French speaking populace is going to be subsumed by the English, subjugated. Weird that we're worried about that. Again, we're not going to go any further down that path for now. And so as a result, in Canada, there's a big, a really, really, really strong value is like honoring the collective and the individual groups amongst us, which you could say is kind of similar to the States, and there are some similarities, but there's also some differences. Canada also was confederated with a lot less distrust of a foreign government. In fact, there was a lot more trust at the time in the foreign government. Initially, Canada was set up as a, I can't remember the actual name for this, but hey, Adam, uh, something along the lines of like a, what do they call it? Like a, I don't know, a monarchic republic or something like that. So in Canada, there's a lot more trust of the government inherent in our culture. Here's why I'm telling you about all this stuff. All of that is a form of what Sadhguru here in this book would call collective memory. So you go about your day, if you lived in the United States of America, you're not even aware that this is part of the cultural fabric you exist in. It's the tapestry you're in. You could think of this like a particular part of an ocean that has currents in it. And you may be like, I'm going to swim in this direction, but you have a natural current that pulls you across in that direction. Hey, Lydia, nice to see you. That's cultural memory. So that is sort of like patterning that's been just ingrained. It's just the way we know to be. We don't even see it. And that's the fourth level of memory that Sadhguru talks about in his book. And then he gets into the individual levels of memory, which would be like, I don't know, maybe I'm gonna just see if I bookmarked it. And if not, then we're gonna move on past this pretty quick. I think I might have. Volition, the basis of karma. Karma as memory, here we go. Now, where did you write these down? Ah, yes, the membranes of memory. So the first four levels are elemental, atomic, evolutionary, and then whatever that last one I said was. And then at the individual level, we have, what does he say? Personal karmic memory, we have sensory memory, we have articulate memory, and we have inarticulate memory. I'm not going to go into those. But these are all ways that our patterning gets put into place, where we stop being free to choose moment by moment. And instead, just like being caught in a current, we don't even realize that we have a direction we travel in. So it's a cool book. I'm enjoying it. I'm about halfway through. At times, I find it a little, what's a good word? Pedantic maybe sounds a bit hard, but like where I'm like, okay, I got the point. I'm ready to move on. And hey, that's okay. So if you're looking for something to read, Karma by Sadhguru is a good, cool book. It also looks really nice on a bookshelf. Also, I notice, first of all, this guy's done a great job of fig leafing himself. Well done. It's called Karma, Heather, right there. Why does he have, is this a yogi thing? He's got like, his big toenails are very long, as are his, over here, his thumbnails. Maybe he's a guitarist or something? That seems really uncomfortable for me. I don't know. Maybe that's like a Shiva or a Shakti thing or something like that. Anyhow, it's 9:55. We've arrived. We are here. It's time for us to hit these sweet ass topics and sip some tea. And tell me how you're doing. How's your Friday going, guys? Tell me in the comments. What's Friday like for you? You got anything planned for the weekend? I don't think I have anything planned for this weekend. I've got a friend who's moving back to Victoria for the first time in probably about a decade. So he grew up here with us. This is an island we live on called Vancouver Island. So it's very rare for people to be born and raised here. A lot of people come here or they leave here. That just tends to be the way it is. So I'm quite a rarity. And a friend of mine named Adam, which is very convenient, is moving back here this, actually, I think he's come back yesterday. So he's moved back. He was living in Tennessee with a woman he met, fell in love with, and started a family with for about 10 years. And he, I think, always had in his heart the desire to come home. And so it's really exciting. Of course, they're quarantined, but we're going to drop off some stuff for them to welcome them home. And so it's pretty cool. LA, what food truck do you work for? And where are you guys based? I'd like to know that. Lydia, that sounds amazing. A morning dip in the ocean. Boy, that must be, is it cold? I imagine it's just amazing at this time of year. Probably really lovely. Oh, Andrea, 30-year high school reunion? That sounds so cool. Andrew says, looking forward to lots of fun perspective shifts that come with getting to meet people where they are and where I am now. Oh, that's so cool. As a kid, I always had this in my mind, like, oh yeah, 10-year high school reunion, 20-year high school reunion. Like I watched Superman, in one of the Superman, the I guess it'd be the Christopher Reeve movies. He went off to a high school reunion and they're all wearing like white tuxes. And I kind of just was like, oh, that's what happens as you're an adult. The school throws a high school reunion for you and provides tuxes. And then I got to the point where I was 28 and I was like, oh, nothing's happening. And then I got to 38. I'm like, oh, nothing's happening. We just don't, these reunions don't get thrown unless someone actually makes them happen. So I'm always impressed when that happens because my graduating class, we've just not really done that. Or if it has, I guess I've not been part of the loop. It would be a fascinating thing to go back. And I imagine it'd be interesting to feel the pull back towards the old ways of being and practice choosing something different, choosing outside of, the cliques. This is the person that I'm meant to be with. I'm okay to hang out with these people. These people I'm not okay with, all of that sort of stuff. Um, One of my friends, a good friend of mine who I go on walks with sometimes, was sharing, I really loved this. He was sharing how he went to a high school reunion and he could feel inside of himself. Holy mackerel, Andrea, 850 people. That is insane. That's so huge. Um, my friend was sharing, he went back to his high school reunion and he noticed a dual competing parts of himself, which is like he wanted to simultaneously have defeated all of the people in terms of like his accomplishments. So like materialistically win, but at the same time to win from the enlightenment place too. So like materialistically, I've achieved greater heights than you have, and I'm so elevated, I don't even care about that. I'm so removed from it. And I was just like, man, I so get that humanity. Those parts are live in me too, from time to time, wanting to win, wanting to be the best. A very natural part of our humanity is to compete, to want to win, to want to be the best. Andrew, you're playing soccer? Where are you playing soccer? Playing with the kids? I played soccer growing up. That was my sport. Um, Heather, what's the exercise you completed? I would love to hear more about that. Survival mechanisms? Is that what the exercise was? Um, LA, you have a homemade ice cream and shaved ice truck. Wow, my bosses from my real job own it. I'm in Alberta currently till mid-October, then back to the island. Well, welcome home when you come back. And ice cream and shaved ice. Now, we're going to get to these topics, but before we do, shaved ice isn't fooling anyone, right? Ice cream's the better treat. I mean, I understand that shaved ice you can put booze on, but guess what? You can do that with ice cream too, so you're not fooling me there. And shaved ice, I guess we could argue, has less calories, but I'm not getting on that Peloton bike so I can eat shaved ice. I'm exercising so I can eat garbage. That's what I'm about. So, as far as I'm concerned, ice cream's the way to go. And they tricked me as a kid. Oh, nice, Heather, physical exercise. They tricked me as a kid. They didn't really trick me, but as a kid, I was initially drawn to those. I don't know if anyone else remembers these ice pops. They're called rockets. They were shaped a little like a flattened rocket with they had ridges down the sides, and then they were colored red, white, blue. Go France or America or whatever. And my brother and I were like, hell yeah, like this is obviously the best. Look at the colors. Exciting. And this person, my dad used to work at the university here, and we would sometimes go to the cafeteria to eat while he was working or whatever. And hey, Maria. And this person saw us and was like, yeah, you're doing it wrong. This is what's up. The ice cream sandwich from a company called Dairyland. And as a kid, I was like, this is so boring. You kidding me? It's just like 2 chocolate wafers with ice cream. But then I tried it and I was like, you're dead to me, Rocket. Never again will I be fooled by flavored ice when there's an ice cream sandwich to be eaten. So that's the game we're playing over here at Quiney household. Andrea trying to defend shaved ice. I love you, so I'm going to let that go. But really bringing the being of coach in this moment. Just be okay. You don't have to be right about this, Adam, even though you are. Okay. Yeah, Klondikes are delicious. Let's dive in here. So Andrew, my man, with the questions. Thanks for bringing these, Andrew. The first one Andrew brings is, what are some ways that I can explore both creating and supporting other people to have a higher level of possibility? So we're going to talk first just about what do we mean when we say possibility, because that's a bit of a jargony term, or at least has the potential to become jargon. Uh, Thanks, Andrea, letting me know I'm doing the best I can. So I like to think of it, you can imagine a cone of predictability emanating out from every human being. And that includes all of the stuff that we're reliably going to make happen or are able to make happen absent any breakthroughs. We don't need any grand shifts. We might have to do harder work. We might have to double down on what we're already doing. We might even have to make sacrifices, but it's all within the range of what we could create. We could figure out how to do it. So the easiest example for me is that when I was a software developer, I had not yet worked as hard as I needed to go through law school and be a lawyer. I had not yet got the skills or even the understanding of how to think like a lawyer under my belt. And I knew I would need to go to school to do that. I did not have the money to go to school to do that. And yet all of that was in my cone of predictability. I could make that happen without needing to do anything drastic, without needing to, like, there's no aspect of that that was sort of deemed impossible in my life. Like, there's just no way I could do that. When we talk about possibility, ironically, what we're really talking about is all of the stuff that someone relates to as impossible in their life. So here's a really quick example. We talked to a lawyer and he's like, oh, I got to work 80 hours a week, but I get paid $250,000 a year. I don't love the time that I'm spending doing that, but I do love the money and what it allows me to provide my family. We could say, well, what about working 40 hours a week? And he'd go, well, I could do that, but then I only make $125,000 a year, but I guess I could blah, blah, blah. I could figure that out. Okay. So inside his cone of predictability, it's kind of like he's got these things on the scales and he can weigh them back and forth and choose any configuration within what is allowed by that balancing act. But if we were to say, well, what about working 40 hours a week and making $500,000 a year? So work half as much and get paid twice as much. The lawyer's head would explode. There is not that possibility available. If you told them make more money, they would just look at like, well, how do I make more money doing what I'm already doing? Well, I guess I work even harder, or I find some way to hustle even more that allows me to get blah, blah, blah. So anytime you try to create a new result with someone, they're going to look inside that cone to figure out, how do I arrange all of this stuff so as to create that result that person's talking about? Which is often why if you ask someone a question like, well, 80 hours, boy, that's a lot. Would you like to work 40 hours a week? Like, is that something you'd want? Their answer is going to be some flavor of, I could do that, but here's why not. And what they're doing is they're going back inside that cone and looking at what that would have to look like and then saying, well, no. So they'd be like, well, I could work 40 hours a week. I mean, I guess, but I really don't want to give up my trips to the Bahamas, and I love driving those Porsches. Or, it doesn't have to be something superficial like that. They'd just be like, I'd love those 40 hours, but I don't want to make that sacrifice. And so consequently, they're like, this is the best configuration of the way things are, blah, blah, blah. So when Andrew asks, what are some ways I can explore both creating and supporting others to a higher level of possibility, he's really asking, how do we support people to create things in their life? I see your question, Mara. I'm going to come to that in a sec. It's a great one. How do we support people even to begin the journey of considering the possibility of stuff that lies outside of that cone of predictability? How do we do that? I'm going to finish reading what Andrew's written, and then I'm going to come to what Mara's asked. So he says, I've been noticing lately that at the beginning of conversations, that idea of what's possible will feel infinite. Anything's possible, oh my God. And then slowly but surely it dips back into reality. It comes back into the cone. And Andrew says, I've been getting better at checking in and supporting people to keep looking at possibility, but sometimes I also get drawn into that cone, the cone zone, as someone shared recently when I was talking to her. And he's saying, one thing I'm also noticing is my own capacity to be in the realm of possibility is somewhat being reflected back to me. So it's a bit of a gut check. And then Mara asks, I'm curious, Adam, how often you see people creating outside of their cone of predictability in the realm of possibility. So let's just lay a bit of groundwork. The first thing for all of us to recognize is this isn't just a coaching conversation. This is really any kind of transformation that we want is going to be beyond the cone of predictability. Breakthroughs and transformation will not happen inside the cone of predictability because all that stuff's already predictably available to you. Most people confuse this. What most people do is they make some kind of exchange inside the cone of predictability, a little bit like rearranging the furniture in your apartment. And they're like, oh my God, I've created a breakthrough. Things are different. Things are different, but no breakthrough was required. They did it on their own, under their own steam. It might have required some willpower. They might have had some resistance to it, but they're still inside the cone of what was predictable and available to them already. They just had to change up what they were doing. So we confuse breakthroughs. We look through that lens and we're like, oh yeah, I've totally created transformation. Oh, it was tough, but I got there. The game to play if you're really someone committed to transformation, either as a leader or as a coach or just in your own personal life, is to lean out over the edge into the stuff beyond that cone. Now that we've laid that on the table, we can talk about what you're asking, Mara, and elaborate a little bit more. The first thing that's important to recognize is that day-to-day life is hostile towards possibility. Your day-to-day life is completely inside the cone of predictability. The way you live your life every day, the stuff that you do, the stuff that you are like, this is acceptable and appropriate and professional and whatever, this is possible, therefore I'm going to do it. All of that is inside the cone of predictability. And everything outside of that cone in the realm of possibility is outside of the way your daily life works. So anytime, I come up to you, if you're someone who's like that lawyer who's learned like you can work this hard and get paid this much money, or you can sort of adjust and tweak the knobs and move them around, but like that equation holds true. Anytime I go, well, what about working half as much and getting paid twice as much? That lawyer is going to look inside their daily life and they're going to see a whole bunch of people working inside of the same confines that they work in. We surround ourselves with proof unconsciously. So he's going to look around and be like, well, I don't see anyone that's working half as much and making twice as much. Or I see that person over there, but they're a liar and a cheat. That's not what I want to do, because that possibility exists in their cone of predictability. So they're like, I can't see anything here that would suggest what you're talking about, Adam, is possible at all. It just seems like a nice fantasy. And hey, I love dreaming too. I've got a poster board with like my own personal island on there, and it's fun to look at that from time to time, but I got to put my face into the real world. That's where I got to put myself, because that's where results happen. So this is what we all do inadvertently, unconsciously. Unconsciously, our vision is pulled back into the cone of predictability, and that's where we put our attention. And anytime someone like a coach or whatever, a leader, invites you to look outside of it, you're going to like maybe be willing to, or sometimes resistant, and might see something, but then over time, the doors to that will shut back and you'll get back to the almost like the perfection of your cone of predictability. So what this means is that we're kind of fighting a battle against entropy when we're standing for people to create something beyond what they're already reliable for. Entropy is the nature of the universe to move from order to chaos. Over time, the universe becomes more chaotic, more randomly assorted, as opposed to ordered, like us as humans. We're highly ordered, relative to the rest of the stuff in the universe. A big expanse of space, of outer space, with just gas in it, is highly unordered. It's very chaotic. And over time, the universe as a whole moves more from order to chaos. Over time, a human being, and in terms of like what we're creating, moves from possibility to predictability. And you can even see this in like with young children versus old people. Old people become very narrow. The world becomes very predictable. And there's not a lot of opening that they have for like, oh, what a cool new idea. I never considered that. It's like, nope, that's bullshit. I've thought about it. Here's the way the world is. Whereas really, really young children are just like wide open. So we're always fighting that kind of entropy. As a coach, as a leader, as a whatever, we want to have a lot of empathy for ourselves and for other people that, oh, Yeah, we're kind of in a battle against that. Of course, people are going to pull back towards the world that they know. It doesn't occur like they're changing on their dreams. It occurs like they're being reasonable. It occurs like they're being realistic. So now I'm going to finalize. I'm going to finish talking about what we do about this. But first, now to your question, Mara, which is how often do I see people creating outside of their cone of predictability? Very rarely. So when people are working with coaches or leaders, someone outside of their own context that's done the work to let go of their own agenda and are providing them regular, hello Grimby, you come in, I'm going to close this door. All right, I'm going to close this door, you can hang out. People outside of your context that can support you to see this stuff, because you can't see it. We can't see that we get brought back into the blinders of our cone of predictability. But when people are working with someone off the court that can stand for them this way, I see it quite often. When coaching's good, when it's potent, and when the coach is doing their own work and getting supported to step outside of what's predictable for them in their own lives, they can then stand for other people to do the same. The rest of the time, people are more often than not working on growth as opposed to transformation. And what growth is going further down the road of your cone of predictability. Not a bad thing. It's just that there's some stuff inside this cone that will forever remain out of your reach. And if you want to create the fullness of life, if there's stuff that you really want that lies outside of what's currently possible for you, it's going to require something beyond mere growth. So most people, they're inside the realm of predictability, and they're growing. The people that are really invested in their own work, that are taking on the kind of support that has them get outside of that cone, those people tend to be not just growing but also transforming, creating breakthroughs. Andrew, you say that outside environment aspect is really interesting. It's so true that we will often be in an environment that supports our reality and not the possibility of something greater. Yeah, almost always. Like if you look around you in your life, everywhere, what you will see is a very well-made case, basically an airtight case for why life is the way it is. What I mean by that is like you have a whole bunch of rules and beliefs and stories about how the world is, how you are, how everyone else is, all of that stuff. And the entire sum total of your life and your experience in it is proof that those are not mere beliefs. It's proof that that is the way the world is. So we're almost being asked to do the impossible when it's sort of like, how do I create a goal that's outside of what's predictable? And this is why we can't really do it ourselves. It's like if a fish just one day was like, you know what? I think I'm going to get up out of this water. He's got no hope of doing that. What if I swim like this? And it's like, nope, you're still swimming. You're in water. Oh, okay. Well, what if I breathe like this? Nope, you're still in water. It's not working. It does make for fun visuals, but it really requires someone outside of the context to support us to get outside of that context ourselves. So, Andrew, the answer to your question, which is like, how do we keep people in the realm of possibility? The first one is we recognize that law of entropy, that over time, people are going to be pulled back to life as predictable. And the cool thing is, as you create breakthroughs, as you get supported to create transformation and to lean into what feels like impossibility in the moment, your cone grows, you expand its range, such that now what's predictable for you includes more options. There's more available. You've broadened the range in which you can show up and manifest in your life. And then that becomes the new level of what's predictable. And for some people, they're like, great, I want to stop here. This is great. And for other people, they're like, cool, I've gotten here, but now I want to grow even further. I'm in. I want this to be the ride of my lifetime. That's crazy people like me. People like coaches, people like leaders that are really committed to that work. That's the game we're up to. It's like, hey, the game now is growing my range as well as growing myself within it. So we recognize that there's a level of entropy, and then we support people to see where they're looking, and we invite them to keep looking outside of it. What a lot of coaches do, a lot of coaches and leaders, in fact, is people get unenrolled. Being unenrolled is the idea of coming back into our cone of predictability. It's where we're like, oh, that cool idea I had, Adam, I thought about it. I looked it up. I researched it. That's fucking crazy. It was a cool idea. I think I'm going to stick at my job. Can you help me love my job and not hate my job? So they've gotten unenrolled in their vision. Thanks, Lydia. That's really great to hear. I appreciate you sharing that. That feedback matters so much. So thank you. Lydia's just sharing that she loves this. So naturally, people will get unenrolled, and our job is to not make them wrong for that. What most leaders do is they hold it like it's a failing on the part of that other person, their direct report, when the direct report loses sight of what's possible and just wants to get caught back in the predictable. And they're like, I need to fire this person. I need to hire someone with a big vision. No, you need to do your own work, buddy. You need to see where you are unwilling to own that you've gotten unenrolled and you've gotten into the predictable path. So you can then start to have some compassion for it and start to really recognize when that happens to someone else, it's not a failing on their part. It's just the natural order of things. It's how we go as time goes on. And they just need your support to get re-enrolled in the possibility that's outside of this. The last thing we're going to say about this is this might be this is, I think, part of the other topic, which is possibility and fear. Everything outside of your cone of predictability, everything you currently relate to as impossible, leaning into that will generate an amount of fear that is in equal proportion to the amount of possibility that's on the table. So anytime someone's like, oh my God, like you sit with them and talk to them about something, they're like, oh my God, I can see this possibility. It's important to recognize there's going to be a bunch of fear that shows up with that too. If there wasn't fear, they'd already be doing it. Fear is the thing that holds us inside of what's predictable and makes it so it looks like that's the entirety of how the world could be. So we want to honor that there's fear showing up too and bring love to that. Rigor as well, but often in the business context, what people tend to bring is rigor. Just fuck, I gotta, get your ass into gear, quit being a wimp. You just need to put those feelings aside. No, they don't. They need someone to first really get them, to really understand and listen to them so that they can understand what's going on and so that they can feel heard. And so that then they can actually choose something different rather than be forced to just do what you tell them to do. This is the really hard part, is because every step of the way in leadership, we're supporting people to make this choice themselves. So you can kick someone in the ass out of their cone of predictability and force them to do the thing that like you believe is possible for them, but that won't create a breakthrough. That'll just create employees that do what you yell at them to do until you fuck off. And then they'll be like, great, I can go back to this. So there's no breakthroughs. There's no transformation down that path. We get people and we help them see like, hey, notice, we're kind of out of the realm of what's possible. And it seems like we've gone into what's predictable. Let's take a look at what's going on there. What's showing up for you? Well, I just don't see that this could ever happen. Okay, great. Tell me more. We can just be in that kind of conversation. Andrea says that fear kicks your ass back to the cone. Exactly. Back to the cone zone. Andrew, you say, I had a really fascinating conversation with a past client last night who actually is willing to play in the realm of possibility, and it was powerful to see what was created, where he is starting to look at what feels impossible in his life and willing to go there. That's the really hard part for creating transformational breakthroughs, is it requires a willingness to aim towards something that currently feels impossible, and indeed currently is impossible based on how we currently show up in our life. It's not physically impossible. It's not like someone's goal is, hey, I want to be able to walk the floor of the ocean for 28 days without any breathing apparatus and without eating. Great. Well, that's, as far as I know, physically impossible. It's not that kind of impossible. It's impossible based on their stories about what they can and can't do and how the world does and does not work. It's absolutely possible to work 40 hours a week and make $500,000 a year. There's people doing that. Now, someone will say, well, it's impossible for me. I just couldn't do that. That's what we're looking for. That's where we're in the realm of possibility for that person, or impossibility, if we call it that. Andrea, you say they, and by this I mean myself, try on something new and then find themselves in the predictable way of navigating the world. Yeah, totally. So what Andrea is really brilliantly pointing out here is that we have the cone of predictability. We declare an impossible goal. We're like, you know what? Fuck it. I am going to work 40 hours a week and I'm going to make twice as much money. That's what I want. I want that. That's important to me. And then we're like, great. And we start supporting them to do that. And then what people will do is it's like they're out here beyond the realm of that cone. And then they reach into the very strategies they use inside the cone and hope that'll get them a new result. So it's like if only using a hammer allows you to build X, Y, and Z, but now you want to build something that requires a screwdriver. The first step is like, I'm gonna build a screw house, a house made entirely of screws. Hooray! And then you're like, okay, I'm scared, but I'm present to this vision and this possibility, and the screw house would be amazing, and it'd be a fun name, and it would go viral. And then what you do is you set about like hammering screws into the walls because that's what you know to do. So that's usually where we hit the point of the breakdown. We're like, this isn't working. This idea is stupid. I'm going to go back to what I know because this is just inefficient. It's just causing me problems. That's the point where we're like, we have to let go of the hammer entirely and really like sit with the failing at that point. And only then can we start to be like, well, what else could I do? Andrew, my takeaway from this is to really get the person in front of me. I still tend to step over that at times. Also, as coach, recognizing that it is normal that clients will fall back into predictability, and it's my role to remind them that the possibility is there. Yeah, this is coach and leaders. We are in a constant battle against entropy. Battle makes it kind of warlike. It's not warlike, but we're in a constant like we're constantly supporting people to go against the grain of their entropy, their personal entropy. We're supporting people constantly to overcome the return to the safe and the predictable so that we can create the unexpected, the impossible, that which is beyond our current range. And that requires a lot of love, a lot of being with people. What did you send me, David? David just says he sent me a question, but I don't know where it is. So maybe he emailed it. I'm just going to see what he's provided me here. Nope, you didn't. That makes it easy. Let's see what we've got. Max. So Max Casper, one of the members of the Forge this year, he asks, this is about coaching and its role in the development and growth of society. So I'm going to read his full question. He says, I'd be interested to hear, Adam, how you understand the modality of coaching to be useful, important, fundamental in the development and furtherment of society as a whole. So that's a big question, Max. Geez, you're lobbing me big, giant. Oh, choppy? How dare it? Mia, can you tell me, I've just said this, so let me know if that's still the case. We're still working out the kinks in our system. David, would you mind posting it right here so I can actually see it? And Mia, let me know if the video stays choppy. That's annoying to me. It says 2.2 megabits per second, 25 FPS, but it's possible I just had a spike on the network. That's been happening lately. So Max asked that question, how do I understand the modality of coaching to be useful, important, fundamental, et cetera, et cetera? And he further says, I would assert that the old ways of enacting change, top down or bottom up, don't serve the planet anymore. And I would assert that the modality of coaching promises a leaders create leaders paradigm, top down to cause bottom up to cause top down, which could really benefit the planet in a profound way. So what coaching as a way of being provides. So I'm zooming us out a bit, as opposed to saying the profession of coaching and more the way of being that a coach would bring to the space. And that way of being is not limited to someone in the profession of coaching. That way of being is something that serves everyone. A leader showing up, trying to better empower and enroll his people in possibility is really served by bringing the being of coach. And the being of coach means that I'm really doing a bunch of work on the back end so that I can meet the world equanimously, meaning I can meet it and just be with it. If someone shows up and is like, coaching's bullshit, instead of me either saying, it is, I'm really sorry about that, and apologizing for it, or saying, fuck you, you don't know what's up, coaching's amazing. I can just meet them at that, and I don't have to have any reaction. I can just be like, oh, interesting, tell me more about that. I don't have to take it and then either have it collapse me or try to chest bump it away, which is basically what we Those are the two kind of reactive ways that we show up. Hi, Christina. We either collapse into something or we punch it away. And so when you are embodying the being of coach, you are continuously doing more and more work through the support, typically of coaching, so that you can be with all of the abundance of life as it shows up. This is the heart of transformation, the ability to be with more and more of life as it shows up. So, for example, if you want a really simple example, just think about your parents, if they're still around, and anything they do that annoys you. Or think of your brother or your siblings or your best friend. Anything they do that drives you nuts. But they should just stop doing that. That's an example of something you can't be with. And you either want to like just pretend it's fine and tolerate it, or you want to stop it, or you want to avoid it, or any of those sort of things. So you can imagine that way of being would serve everyone. You know, every leader, that if someone is speaking in a meeting, instead of saying, shut up, Harv, shut up, Harvey, friggin' Harvey, if they could just be like, meet that person, not just in the way they speak to them, but like deeper than that, in their being, they're like, oh, Harvey's interrupting again. I wonder what's going on there. Just bringing some curiosity, that would allow far greater impact to happen, because then their energy is not going to convey a fuck you at Harvey. It doesn't matter how civilly you try to cut off the part of your body below your neck and just sort of like, I am speaking to Harvey professionally about him interrupting, that energy will still come through. This is often quite a surprise to people like myself who early on in life learned to cut everything but their head off. And then people are like, wow, you seem kind of angry. And we're like, what are you talking about? My spreadsheet does not have a cell that says I am angry, but they still feel it. So if we can do that work to really generate the being of coach, it makes a tremendous difference everywhere. So that's the first thing. If I and other people like me and you and all of us could continue in the work to do more of that, the world would be a much gentler, more loving, more gracious place. There would, I believe, be less war. There would be less arguing. There would be less conflict. Not no conflict, but the conflict would work itself out sooner, because we wouldn't hide stuff and we wouldn't have a reaction and pretend we don't, and then blah, 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 and so on and so forth. So just things would be smoother. It would be a beautiful thing. Yes, Heather says, I feel anger like that even in people's writing. It comes through. Yeah, our energy always comes through. We try to pretend it's not there. It doesn't work. You can fool some people, sort of, but not really. You might fool them up here in their head, like when your head's meeting their head, but below that, our bodies know what's going on. Subconsciously, it's always perceived. So that's the first part of my answer to Max's question. I think coaching would do a tremendous amount of good. And I'm talking specifically about the being of coach. The doing of coaching, the profession of coaching, supports us to bring more of that being. It's a way that allows us to work through this stuff and to step into our fears, to create more powerful lives as a reflection of who we are innately. And what allows us to be more expressed as who we are innately is an ability to be with more stuff in life. If I can just be Adam Quiney without reaction, without judgment, with someone showing up a certain way, now I can be with them. I don't need them to change. And consequently, that stuff flows through me instead of getting caught energetically with me. Now let's go to the second part of Max's question, which is, he's saying the old ways of enacting change don't serve the planet anymore. So I'm going to drink tea. There's a bit of a, there we go. There's a bit of a trap in this part of Max's question. And the trap is analogous to when I'm working with someone and we're looking at this pattern that they're running in their life, whatever it happens to be. I don't know, when someone yells at them, they decide that's it, and they leave. There's never any further conversation. And they don't stand up for themselves, they just leave, cut and run. And maybe we're looking at that pattern and they're like, I can't do this anymore. It's not serving me anymore. I'm done with it. That's not true. So the old ways actually do serve us in some way. The old patterns present in the world do serve us in some way. Even things, this is not going to be a popular thing, and people will probably take this out of context or the wrong way, but even things like patriarchy and sexism serve us to some extent. I'm not saying they're good. I'm not advocating for them. I'm not saying they serve our highest commitment. I'm not saying they're not outdated. So I want to be really clear here. But if I step over this, then I'm going to give a inaccurate perspective of the wholeness of what we're talking about. What I'm saying is that our society gets something from all of these old patternings. If I am working with someone who has a pattern of finding partners that are abusive and then staying with those people long past the point where she knows she shouldn't stay with them, there is some payoff to that for her. There is something that she's getting from it, or for him. And one of the ways this can show up would be where someone has a internal story that they are garbage. They have a story that they are worthless, that they are not worthy of being a human being. And to step outside of that is going to be really confronting for them. And so by finding partners, probably unconsciously at first, and they'll start to become conscious of this pattern, but by finding partners that align with that story, it allows them to stay within the safety, to whatever extent that story does provide safety, it allows them to stay inside of that. Now, I'm doing a lot of like qualifying because this is thin ice we're on. It's sticky for a lot of people. So I want to make sure it's clear what I'm pointing to here. I'm not saying then we go to that abusive person. We say, you're just doing it because you're getting a payoff about it. Not the abusive, the abused person. We have to bring a lot more care, and this requires a tremendous amount of skill and art. The only point that I'm intending to make here is that all of our patterns serve us to some extent. They got us here. They're not necessarily what we want to keep doing, but they brought us here. The same is true, just like when you go and get a massage from someone, what they're doing is they're resetting your muscle. They're helping your muscles reset themselves to their most natural state of rest. So for a lot of people, we end up hunched up like here. We have our shoulders way up. You can see people, they're walking around like giant fridges, or it's like they've got huge traps. Nice traps, bro. Walking around like this. Sidebar, does anyone notice that people that do a lot of CrossFit sometimes walk a little bit like there's something up their butt? Is that just me? I've noticed really fit, like way, way fitter than me, but they have this weird walk. I don't know. Let me know if you've noticed that. I'm curious. I'm curious if that's just me. Anyhow, that's not totally being charitable. I want to acknowledge that. My apologies to anyone that does do CrossFit. You look amazing. It does seem like when people really work their body out, they get, I think, like a bit of a duck walk. It might be just because their thighs get really big or something. Anyhow, I'm digressing. I just wanted to set right what felt a little off key for me to say there. So these patterns serve us. The muscles, we're using this as a metaphor, when you're getting massaged, your muscles get reset to their natural state. So this is the most natural state for our shoulders, but we can get into a pattern where we hold them up here. Or another one is tall people will hunch a lot, especially tall women. Men will do it as well, but especially tall women. And part of what's happening is when you hunch and lower yourself, you shrink. You take up less space physically. And tall people, and especially tall women, get a lot of attention, and a lot of that attention is unwanted and or unsafe. So what's the strategy? Shrink yourself. So their body takes on the shape of this energetic need to become shorter. We could say, oh, it doesn't serve them. It doesn't serve them at all. There's no benefit to that. It's actually just causing them harm, but it actually does serve them. And if we want to support them in moving beyond that, we have to recognize first and foremost that there are things we get out of that. And we're going to have to, like, as we move into something new, we're going to come into confrontation with the things that energy protected us from. So if a tall woman decides like, hey, I want to own all of my height. I want to be as glorious in my Shakti and my Kali energy, and I want to be fully expressed and like, I am woman, hear me roar. Fuck yeah, by the way. If a woman made that decision, it's important that she recognize that there's going to be some stuff she's going to be confronted by as she makes that decision and as she shifts her energetic shape. And what's going to happen is she's going to start putting her shoulders back, which may emphasize her chest more as well. And that's going to draw some attention. She's going to start to get noticed more because she's no longer shrinking herself so as to avoid that notice. And that's going to drive up some stuff. And that's going to make it challenging for her. So all of this is intended as a bit of an analogy to the stuff, the patterns in the world. First of all, I think it's important that we recognize we don't need to change any of it. It's really important that we do. I'm a proponent that we do so. But sometimes when I say this, people misunderstand me and they think that what I'm saying is, it's fine, don't worry about it. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that the world and life will go on even if we don't change any of it. And so it's important that we change that belief that we have to change it. We can't keep going on this way. Instead, to what I believe is a more powerful place to come from, which is we must choose to change it. It's absolutely sustainable like this. We can keep going this way. We don't want to. And in order to have it be different, we have to choose something different rather than just trusting if we wait long enough, this is going to fall apart anyhow. It's not. People die like this. People die with their shoulders up there because they've never changed it because life goes on. Life adapts incredibly to whatever gets put in front of it. And so too will our energy. Society can adapt. We can adapt. It's always about making a choice as opposed to being forced down a path. I'm going to read a little bit what Heather and Lydia wrote here. Heather says, I totally agree regarding sexism and patriarchy. Society does get something, and that's why it's fought so hard for it to maintain. Absolutely. And we have karma, right? There's collective karma involved in that. And Lydia says, the thin ice I'm talking about is pioneering into breakthroughs and possibility. It's unfortunate it is so prickly to talk about. Absolutely. And, the other part of this conversation is while we can talk about all of this stuff, we also want to, we also want to hold compassion and love for the people that aren't yet able to have this conversation, that are still kind of stuck in the hurt, the harm of it. And, pointing to what's possible or to this sort of stuff before we've met them in their harm, that's its own kind of damage and irresponsibility. So it's all very it's quite a morass. It's very messy to move in and out of. But thanks for everyone for being in this conversation with me. Thanks, Max, for your question. And I think that's where we get, sort of this, yes, coaching would benefit the world and does and will. And the more we can learn collectively to embody the being of coach, the more the world is going to transform for the better. And we can be in conversations like this where people will say stuff that's triggering for us and we can sit with it and expand our being to allow for it. And then at the same time, it's also important to recognize the world can keep going on the way it's going. It's done so for thousands and thousands of years, and it will continue to do so. Andrew says, we need a 2-minute break implemented on my lives at the top of the hour for a coffee refill and bathroom break. I love that. That's the very best review I feel I could get ever for these is the content was so compelling that I peed myself or I had a colostomy bag installed. And that's what you've given me, Andrew. So thanks for that. Okay, sip of tea. Let's see what you wrote here, David. David says, I'm curious if I could speak to what I think is a breakthrough on trust. I feel most of the time that the weight of the world and the people around me is my responsibility. Often I feel empowered, but also many times I feel drained and like I want to be a big fuck you to all, and yet I don't allow myself to be that person. That's really relatable, David. So let me give you an example of my version of what David's describing. The reason I'm saying my version is because trust it's an individual thing. For each person, part of trust is going to be trusting the gifts you bring to the table, and your gifts might be different from my gifts. So one of the places this used to show up for me a lot is in the realm of connection. Who I am, you hopefully can get, I'm just wiping the sweat off my bracelets here. Who I am, you can hopefully get. Part of what I embody is connection. if you meet me at a party and you come and say hi, we're going to get along like wildfire together. And I can be that way with almost everyone. It's natural. And these days I've done a lot of work to really embody that. So it's there. But it didn't always used to be that way. And the way my life had become over 30 years of practice, unconscious practice, was I could be connection with a very narrow scope of people. And then I could, with a bunch of other people, I would either avoid connection for a bunch of reasons I had, or I would overexpress connection. I would do the performance of connection. So the performance of connection is like internally, I'm shut down. There's just this talking head, but externally, it's all smiles and charm and glib and funny, witty jokes. But you never actually connect with a human being. It might as well just be like a computer program called like CharmBot 3.0. It's very charming, very chatty. You can kind of hang out with them, and then the conversation's over, and you're like, "Well, that was fun. I don't know who I just talked to. I don't know anything about him. I'm not connected to him. I didn't really get a sense of much of a human being, but it was fun. I guess I could spend another 10 minutes with that guy at some party in the future. 4 hours? That might be a lot." So my connection was very narrow. Where I could fully express myself as the connection I naturally am was very narrow, not a lot of range. Oh, see, Mia, you got the right idea. I would love to do that too, but I can't. I can't take my laptop to the toilet. I have left the lives at times to go to the bathroom, but I don't want to do that because I don't want to leave. So what would happen at parties from this thing I just described, where I could be connection in some places and other places I'd avoid it altogether. And in third versions, like with certain people, I would like turn it up, turn it up. When you would find me at parties, there'd be a couple things that would happen. Let me add in one more thing. Underneath all of this was and is a tremendous terror of disconnection, the awkwardness, that feeling when you go to try to connect with someone and it's kind of bumpy and rocky and it doesn't quite line up. That was terrifying for me. That was not just an experience, just like going up in an elevator and your stomach kind of jumps a little bit, or any other experience. That was an experience with some significance attached to it. It was laden. If there was disconnection in the space, it meant I was a loser. It meant I was a terrible conversationalist. It meant this person didn't want to talk to me. It meant all of that. So consequently, these are strategies to avoid that experience. One, just don't connect in the first place. Oh, then I don't have to be with the experience of a disconnect. Ironically, it creates a much bigger one where I'm just disconnected from the whole world, but I don't have to be with the sharpness of a disconnection with an immediate person in front of me. And on the other side, be charming and glib was like, haha, as long as we keep doing this for the next hour, we'll never notice that we're not actually having any real connection. Yay. It's not awkward, right? There's not even a moment to pause and think about the awkwardness. I'll tell another joke. You know, that idea of like a smile that never reaches someone's eyes. So when I would go to, Andrea, you know what I'm talking about. When I would go to parties, they were frightful affairs for me. The very best parties were the ones that I could go to, like a wedding. I loved weddings because I'd go there and I'd know a few people. But then, hey, America, happy Friday. I'd go to a party and I'd know a few people, or sorry, a wedding, but then the most of the rest of the people didn't know me. So I could be whoever I needed to be. There was like total freedom. What was far more scary for me would be going to a party where I know a whole bunch of people and they're from all different walks of life. And then I'd be like, oh my God, how do I need to connect with this person. I need this person to like me this way. I need to, this person, I have to show up this way for that person. And one of the things that is most present for me would be the experience of talking to you, but I'm looking over your shoulder and I notice someone by themselves. And they're by themselves. That's the facts. But what gets created up here, what still does a little bit, but far less, and I don't really do much about it, I just allow it to be there. What would get created up here while I'm talking to you would be, fuck, that person is alone. They feel lonely. They're not having a good time. This is my party. They should be having a good time at my party. I can't just let them sit there. Can I just let them sit there? Oh my God, what do I need to do? Do I need to end this conversation with this person and go talk to them? Ah, fuck, fuck, fuck. Oh, this is exhausting. I hate this. I wonder when this party's over. On repeat forever. So like any time I would spot someone by themselves, they became my personal cause célèbre. I needed to go and like rescue that person. What's going on there ultimately is an inability on my part to trust anything. I can't trust that that person's fine exactly the way they are. I can't trust that maybe it's divine. Like if we go even well, let's go outwards rather than just start at God. First, I couldn't trust myself to just like what there was for me to do was just enjoy the person in front of me. I couldn't trust that that was okay. I couldn't trust that it's okay for Adam to just be enjoying this. This moment right here is what he's here to enjoy, so I can't trust it. Second, I couldn't trust that person over there to manage themselves, to be in their own affairs. And hey, it sucks when we feel all alone at a party, but it's not on me. That's not anyone's job or responsibility but myself. Andrea knows exactly what I'm talking about here. It's exhausting, right? Isn't it tiring? I can't trust that person to be the leader of their own affairs. So I'm kind of getting it, it's done from like this caring place, but it's really about managing my own fears. And from managing my own fears and not being able to practice trust in this situation, I'm getting up in their grill. I'm I'm blocking their own leadership because their leadership in that moment would be like, "Hey, I feel alone. What do I want to do about that? I'm going to go and talk to this person." Or, "Hey, I feel alone. What do I want to do about that? I'm going to hang out here by myself." Any of that sort of stuff, that's theirs. I took that away from them because I was managing them. I also couldn't trust God in this situation. Spirit, space blueberry muffin, Lord's dragon in the sky. I couldn't trust spirit whatsoever, that spirit created all of this with intention. Or even if not with intention, that there is like a divine kind of perfection to what's happening in this moment. Instead of being able to trust this moment exactly as it is, I was like, this moment's wrong and needs to be fixed. So that's three layers of trust for me, David, that I couldn't, there was no trust in any of those. And the way it worked for me over time was slowly moving through each of those. First, like learning to trust myself, like, oh, okay, I can be with this. And then the next level, like, okay, they're feeling a certain way. I really want to go rescue them, but I'm going to trust myself to be here in this moment. And then, slowly but surely, well, they're feeling that way and it's not my job to do anything about it. I don't have to fix it. In fact, maybe there's nothing to fix. Maybe this is exactly where they want to be. Can I trust that? And then finally, can I trust all of this? All of this and just let it be. From all of my fixing, from all of that strategy to manage everything and make sure there was no disconnection in the space, of course there's a fuck you in me. Of course. The fuck you is like, fuck all of you. Why do I have to rescue you at at my stupid party? This is my party. Why should I have to do this? And if I really voiced that, people would be like, yeah, fuck off, Adam. Stop doing that. But they didn't ever get a chance to do that. So this is kind of the a bit craziness of how our stuff works is we take all of this action ostensibly on behalf of other people, really to quell and manage our own fears, and then we get resentful and tired from it. And then we're resentful and people never really understand why. They're like, why did Adam storm out of the party? That was weird. Oh well, I'm having a good time. I'll give you one more example where this has been showing up lately for me. Bay and I work with a couple of teachers in the practice of the yoga of intimacy. So usually when we think of yoga, we think of the physical yoga, I think you call it the sutras, the positions we'd move through to like stretch out our body, to do all of this sort of stuff. But yoga is a much broader concept than that. And I'm probably going to gum it up trying to explain it. But really, like a yoga is any sort of practice that would stretch us energetically into some new space, some new capacity, and it would allow for spaciousness and for stuff to show up. Excuse me. So physical yoga, like I don't know the names right now, they're all fleeting. Um, but that creates spaciousness in your body and allows you to get beyond your head and your monkey mind into your body in an embodied state. It's not designed to like create bulky muscles or anything along those lines. It's designed to create spaciousness in your body. The yoga of intimacy is a set of practices we take on with another person, another human being, to create spaciousness and to allow intimacy to build, to stretch into the space of intimate relating with one another. So that work involves a few things. The first foundation for that work is building presence. Before I go any further, I want to share who our teachers are for this, which is a man named Justin Patrick Pierce and a woman named London Angel Winters. And if any of this interests you, I highly recommend you follow them. They're masters, very profound people, and I love working with them. And they're a lot of fun too. So the foundation for the yoga of intimacy is presence with another person. If we're sitting down with each other and I'm looking around and I'm fidgeting at my skin and I'm distracted and my dog runs into the space and I pet him and then I come back and I'm like, okay, yeah, let's keep doing this. We can't create a lot of intimacy in the moment. So the first foundation is presence, and we have practices designed to evoke presence. And over time, you get pretty good at being present and in a moment of presence with another individual. What that would look like for Bay and I would be like sitting across from each other, me staring into her left eye and her staring into my left eye, and then breathing together and training ourselves as kind of one. So we're getting energy flowing like this through ourselves. The next stage would be creating polarity. So polarity typically is spoken of using the labels masculine and feminine energies, but we're going to use alpha and omega. They're pointing to the same thing, but when we talk about it like alpha and omega, it makes it easier for people to not get uh, pulled into whatever potential triggers there may be to masculine, feminine, patriarchy, heterarchy, all that sort of stuff, because that's not the intention. So whoever is holding the alpha pole, which more often than not is the man, but is not a requirement, is bringing stillness and consciousness and depth to the moment. The alpha energy transcends the moment. The omega pole and the omega energy, descends into the moment, descends into feeling. So the omega partner is bringing the energy, the creative life energy into the moment. So the omega is moment by moment. What do I feel now? Where do I feel my body called to move to right now? What do I want to do? What sound is coming out of me? That's omega. Alpha is stillness, is resting and witnessing all that is happening for both partners. And in doing so, the alpha creates the depth of the moment in that intimacy, and the omega creates the energy of it. And so we practice with this. Okay, everyone still following? Now I'm going to talk about the part about trust and trusting myself and how that shows up. So Bay and I have practiced enough with this, we can start to feel that energy that gets created between the two of us as one of us holds one pole and the other holds the other pole. And what happens is it's like two poles on a battery. As one person holds stillness and depth and transcendence, and the other person feels the delight and the energy of the moment, it creates kind of like a chemical spark. There becomes tension. If we're both resonating at the same frequency, for example, if both of us were sitting still and transcending, there's resonance. There's sort of like we operate at the same level, but there's not a tension between the two of us. And likewise, if we were both sort of dancing in the moment and embodying the omega together, that would also be cool, but there'd be resonance rather than tension. So when we are doing intimate polarity work, we're practicing one person holding one pole, the other person holding the other pole, and then sitting in that. So from here, we've started to work with asking for what we want once that polarity is present. And finding the thread of pleasure and following it wherever it goes. So that might mean like at first I might want Bay to like softly let her body move. That might be like, that's what I want. I notice that's what shows up that I want. Or I might be like, I want you to trace circles around my chest and around my nipples, and I want you to blow softly on my neck, or whatever. Whatever shows up is whatever shows up. What we're working on is feeling the moment. What is alive for us in this moment, as opposed to imposing artifice on the moment, which is much harder than you would think because we have all of this stuff. Well, much harder than I would think. Maybe for you, it's a piece of cake. You're like, oh, I'm a master of this. No problem. No fucking problem. I live in the moment. This guy doesn't. This guy made a lifetime practice for the first 30 years of his life, not being in the moment, transcending the moment and living up here in his head. And so I show up to a practice like this to sit in this yoga and to practice as a yogi. And my head is like, what are you supposed to want? What's the right thing? You know what? It's been a while since you've asked for this. Maybe you should start there. That would feel good. But at the same time, you asked for that last week or yesterday. And so maybe that's cheating and maybe you need to do something different. So you can tell there's like all of this stuff going on. And the challenge for me is twofold. On the one side, I want to honor the pleasure that is there to be like, I want to honor the desire in me that's showing up in the moment. At the same time, I have a fear. And the fear is if I just trust whatever's showing up in the moment, what if I only ever stay in the realm of what's nice and never kind of move beyond that to an area that is a little less comfortable, but will open up more for us? So this is kind of like going to the gym and always lifting the same weights because it feels kind of good, as opposed to like, okay, I can crush these 50 pounders, but now it's time to move to 50. Fuck, that doesn't feel good at all, and I suck, and I can't do the same amount of reps. So, Andrea, yes, the version of what it's supposed to look like, and Heather Beaton says it even more articulately, that friggin' right thing. So there is a tension here because we are doing this yoga so as to grow our range, but at the same time, if all I do is put my attention on the need to grow my range, now I've introduced artifice. I'm no longer present in the moment. And so the challenge here is trusting myself and trusting my teachers. Trusting myself that if I just allow myself to ask for what I want and be in the pleasure of the moment with that thing, that it will lead me down a particular path towards whatever's next. And really learning, or perhaps a better way is unlearning everything I've put in the way of just letting pleasure guide me. This has been a huge thing in sex for like as long as I can remember, and we're unwinding it, which is really cool. It's also really edgy and challenging because my head keeps coming online and being like, yo, man, maybe you should make sure, blah, fuck off. Kind of enjoying something here, buddy. And then trusting my teachers to help me see when there's like, to invite me when there's a deeper level for me to step into. So kind of letting myself off of that hook, not having to try to do it all myself. And this is part of what working with masterful teachers, leaders, and coaches provides us. So many of us are trying to do it all. We're trying to like, okay, I'm going to trust myself to fully be embodied, and I'm also going to trust my, quote unquote, and let's not use that word. I'm going to be fully embodied and in the moment, and then I'm also going to monitor myself to make sure that I'm stepping outside of my comfort zone, and then I'm also going to make sure I'm not too much in my head, but blah, blah, blah. Oh my God, that's really tiring. The opportunity in working with masters is that we can let go of needing to find the right path to step into, and we can just trust the path we're on. And we can be like, great, how can I fully embody this today? Knowing tomorrow that my teacher may say, go a little more to the right, or actually go a little more to the left. And that's real where mastery is built. So David, that's another place for me where I'm cultivating trust in myself. I'm learning how to trust the pleasure that I feel, not as bad, not as wrong, or even not as complacency, which is another flavor of bad and wrong. But that's like the nuance of it for me is if I really just hang out here where it feels really good, is that me being complacent? That's how that's part of where my energy gets a bit blocked. Because then it's like, fuck, if I'm being complacent, everyone else is going to get ahead of me, and then I'm never going to catch up to them, and I'm going to lose. So that's a cool practice that we're taking on, and a fascinating area. And as you can imagine, everything shows up there, just like wherever else we're practicing, everything shows up there. That's cool. Andrea says the fine line of doing the work and then being with the work that I'm doing. Yes, stupid head in the way indeed. And Andrew says it's such a great place to just fully enjoy the experience of sex and have fun with it rather than the performance of it. Yes, indeed. So these are some really cool areas in my life where I'm practicing right now, and cool edges that I'm exploring, that I'm coming into. And like one of those edges is the need to be on the edge rather than trust exactly where I am. Would that be enough? And that's often what I'm getting supported with my coaches and teachers is, like a lot of people have this idea, oh, I work with a coach to always be on my edge. And then when they decide they don't necessarily want to, quote, be on their edge, they're like, oh, I guess there's no reason to work with a coach. But that's not what my coach supports me in doing. She supports me in continually finding my truth moment by moment. Whether my truth is, I really want to lean into something here, or boy, I'm having a hard time just empowering where I am right now. Both of those are edges, ironically. It's almost like maybe your edge right now, Adam, is to not be on an edge or something like that. So the beautiful thing about this work is that the further you go into it, the deeper the practice becomes and the deeper the coaching becomes. If you and your coach are growing together, there never needs to be an end. There can be, you can choose, but like as long as you and your coach are both in your work, there's no end to the depths that we can sort of uncover and allow to be expressed into the world. And that to me is really profound. Okay, we got 15 minutes left. We're going to hit this last question. I think I'm going to talk about how we dress and being responsible for our impact. So, how do I want to walk into this conversation topic? The way we dress is a funny thing because growing up in school, so much of our individuality and everything attached to that, such as needing to be an individual or needing not to be an individual so you don't get made fun of, or so much of that is wrapped up in our clothing. Maybe not for everyone, but for a lot of us. And so like typically junior high here in at least Canada and probably North America, if you're in a private school, it's a little different, but at the same time not. So in a private school, you're given a uniform, but you'll notice that even if you make everyone dress the same, people find ways to express their individuality through their hair, through the bow they put in their hair, through the way that, like, if you ever watched Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, the way that Will Smith would wear his jacket backwards, which had a dope-ass liner in it, by the way. It was crazy. So we always find a way. And for me in junior high, at last fashion, you get it, Mia. The clothes I wore, first of all, my parents wouldn't spend the crazy amounts of money that it cost to be on trend. And really, by on trend, I didn't want fashion. I wanted to wear the clothes that the cool kids were wearing. And my parents weren't willing to spend money on that. That's fine. It wasn't back then. These days, it's fine. And so what that meant was I got to wear like, how like there's like Nike, the cool brand, I would get to wear the brand that was imitating them. Lynx was the brand I'd get to wear. So they'd have sort of like kind of a swoosh, but not, they'd follow along with it. It was still a 4-letter brand name and it almost looked like it, but you could totally fucking tell it wasn't. So our style, the way we dress becomes very wrapped up in that. And it often gets created at a young age, a very impressionable, very tender age. Grade 8, 9, and 10, which would be, how old are we? We're talking about sort of like, I guess, 12, 13, 14, 15, those ages, which are really challenging ages because that's where we're simultaneously trying to individualize ourselves, to stand out as an individual, but at the same time, not because we want to fit in at the same time. And then you add a bunch of hormones and like spontaneous erections and budding breasts and all of that. Oh fuck, what a mess. So it's all, our sense of style tends to be wrapped up in that. And a lot of how we dress is grown out of that seed. So what happens is we end up putting together a strategy about our clothing rooted in there unconsciously. And then it gets evolved over time, but it's still a tree grown out of that same seed. So the first part of this is that anytime you talk about clothing with people, they can be quite touchy about it because there's a bunch of identity wrapped up in it. Oh man, you got pumps, Raphael? Were they LA Gear? The closest I ever got to Reeboks was a pair of LA Gear high tops. Man, pumps, those are cool. They go for a lot of money these days. D Brown, I remember D Brown dunking, and then he'd do up his pumps before he'd do that, and that was the year those shoes became just huge. So that's the context that we then are kind of speaking into anytime we're going to address someone's clothing, is that they probably put their personal sense of style together at a really young age. And as soon as we poke at that, we're going to be poking at a tender part of themselves that may have been armored by the clothing. So any poking, you can expect maybe some defensiveness, blah, blah, blah. Here's the thing about our clothing, though. Put in the comments like the stuff that was sort of hip when you were going to school. So for me, it was, I'm going to put some stuff in here. Varney shirts were really big. Buffalo jeans. Oh, it's not letting me type. There we go. And let's not forget Aikida lock-up jeans. They didn't have a button. They had a lock with a key attached, and then blah, blah, blah. Jokes about needing to go to the bathroom. Don't lose the key, et cetera, et cetera. I didn't get to wear that, but I did have a pair of Buffalo jeans that were pretty cool. So we get to the point 40 years later where we're dressed the way we're dressed. And at this point, it's kind of, it might be that we put thought into how we dress, but the underlying meaning that we're conveying tends to be pretty unconscious. We don't realize we're picking clothes on a certain basis. We just think this is a cool outfit. This appeals to me. I like that. We don't realize that underneath that might be like, fuck you, don't you dare look at my body. Or look at me. Or don't judge me based on how I look. Or so there's all of these sort of, all of these sort of things that are wrapped up, that are sewn into the texture of what our sense of style means to us that we're unaware of. And it's just the current we're caught in. The reason that we would even think about this, the reason we would even have a conversation about any of this stuff is because we are so unaware of what our sense of style, the way we dress, conveys to the world. And so often when I'm working with leaders, this is something we have to start to address, and it's something that's really touchy for people. What we're addressing is our impact as a leader. So oversized Dickies, I love it. All of these things I remember, like, so for me, and one became really popular when I was like out of high school. Dickies, I remember kind of being maybe in my 20s. Nike Shocks, I remember my friend when I was in my first undergraduate degree having those shoes. It's so cool that, like, I like, these are all kind of markers, time markers. Oh man, LA in the early 90s, that must have been fresh. So our clothing conveys so much more to other people than we are aware of. And because we're touchy about it, and because we wrap our identity up in this notion of our clothing, the attitude we tend to get is, fuck you, I get to dress the way I want, and you can't make it mean anything about me. That's a fine attitude, just like any attitude is fine. Fuck you, period, is a fine attitude, but it's going to have an impact. And part of what we are up to in the game of leadership is being more and more responsible for our impact, so we can check in and say, hey, is this having the impact I'm committed to having? So if I show up, when I was in law school, when I left software and went back to school, I was doing hair modeling. My stylist at the time took a lot of photos, and she was like, you have great hair. I'd love to model. Like, do you want to do some hair modeling? I was like, totally. And so she'd color it cool colors. And then I would go and apply for law jobs, which was quite something. And so I remember applying to one job with like my hair was black with like a peacock colored stripe, I guess, across the front here. And and of course that's going to have an impact. So I can show up and be like, you better not have any opinion about me based on my hair. And I can try to like bully someone in that. Like I can sort of sit there and almost like an active challenge, like go ahead, motherfucker, try and judge me for this. I'm just going to come back to you and you're going to regret it. But what that will do is it's just going to have someone stuff their judgment underground. And really what's happening is I'm not being responsible for the fact that the choices I've made do have an impact. So underneath all this, what we're really getting at is that it's not that you need to dress any particular way at all. It's not that if you wanted to, you could wear assless chaps or like a plunging cleavage neckline. You can do that sort of stuff, but there's going to be an impact. And the leader is always aware and present to their impact so they can ask themselves, is that the impact that best serves what I'm up to? The challenge here is that often we kind of like, we feel like, well, but they shouldn't let that bother them. Like I remember when these days tattoos like this one are quite commonplace. Like body art and even like neck tattoos these days are becoming sort of big fucking deal. You got a neck tattoo. But like when those first came out, it was like, man, a neck tattoo. Well, why is your neck any different from your hand? What's the difference there? But it was. And when tattoos first came out, I can remember a conversation with Bay where her energy was kind of like, well, they shouldn't judge me for that because the whole world is getting tattooed. So it doesn't make sense for them to judge me for that, which is totally fine. It's okay for us to have that attitude. But we kind of have to recognize, regardless of what we feel people should or shouldn't do, they're still humans and they're still going to do what they're going to do. And so the leader lets go of the right to dictate what other people should or shouldn't do and shows up inside the world as the world currently is. Hey, the world's currently judging tattoos. I'm going to wear long sleeves. The reason I'm going to wear long sleeves is so that my first impression is not marred by someone's judgment of a person with a tattoo, whether or not that judgment is accurate. If I show up like this and I say, I'm going to speak to you all about professionalism, people might have something that they now have to listen through. They might have to be like, what the fuck's this guy got to say about professionalism? Well, he's dressed nice. He's quite articulate. He seems fairly educated. His haircut's not too bad. I'm going to sit like this for the first half hour. And they're going to hear everything I say through the lens of that. They're going to hear everything I say through the lens of, I kind of like this guy, but I don't know about that tattoo. And like, and maybe by the end of that first half hour, I've got them on board and they can listen to me, but that's a half hour I've wasted. That's a half hour that I could have really addressed much easily by doing something to be responsible for my impact. I could have said, hey, I could have first just worn a long sleeve shirt so they didn't see that. And then they can hear everything I have to say. And then once we've established some rapport, then maybe I take my shirt off and they're like, oh, you got a tattoo. Oh, that's cool. Another option might be that I'm like, okay, given that some people are going to have judgments about tattoos and this kind of style, I'm going to address that up front. I'm going to speak to that first. That's another way we can be responsible for our impact is by addressing our impact. So I might come up and say, hey, I'm going to talk to you guys about professionalism today. And the very first thing people often have in their space is that this guy's got a tattoo. What does he even know about professionalism? And so the conversation I want to have with you is one where we're distinguishing rules and regulations about professionalism from professionalism as a way of showing up with one another and establishing rapport and intimacy, regardless and inclusive of our differences. So that might mean that this tattoo created a judgment in you right out of the gate. That's part of the opportunity that's available for you today to start to notice the stuff that gets in the way of that second kind of professionalism we're going to talk about. So now what I've done is I've addressed and been responsible for my impact, as opposed to pretending it's not there or making the impact your thing to deal with. Fuck you. You got to deal with this. I'm here. I'm me. You can do that. It's just not really being very responsible. And the hallmark of leader is responsibility. Andrea, you say, nope, I'm going to punch them in the face with my personal style. I got a story about that. When I first started getting trained in leadership, I still had a good sense of style. Like my clothes were well coordinated. My outfits were well put together. Um, but they were also kind of in your face, wild and loud. So like I would wear uh, a check pattern sort of teal shirt with jeans with some rips in them and a nice belt and like a nice set of dress shoes and then like a bright blue Kangol hat off to the side. It all was coordinated, but it was fucking loud. And my style was like, here I am, I'm here. So it's not that I looked bad. It's that for you to actually get an experience of me, there's a lot you had to listen through. It would be like if I showed up and just started shouting at you for the first 10 minutes and then your ears acclimated and you can hear with me. And have you guys ever been around someone like that where like their voice is naturally really loud, or at least the way they've learned to speak is naturally very loud? And you're like, you kind of like receive them this way energetically, if not physically. That's what I was creating, but I couldn't be responsible for it because I wasn't aware that that was the impact that was being had. So someone had to sit me down and be like, hey, let's talk about your style and be in a conversation about that. Um, the cool thing is that as we let go of the need for other people to change, they are then free to change. So if I don't show up with a fuck you, you got to accept me with my tattoo no matter what. If instead I start from being 100% responsible over here, what that creates is a space for them to do their own work. If I'm like, fuck you, that leaves them with only two choices: accept this guy and kind of feel mollified, or fuck you back, don't accept this guy. That's not a very powerful place to leave people as a leader. So we want to be responsible for our impact with our clothing. And so it's really helpful to take a look and be like, what is the impact of my clothing? Like, how does this land on people? Does this put something in this space? And if it does, am I okay with that being in the space? Is that what best serves what I'm up to, what I'm seeking to do, what I'm trying to create? Or is this in the way of that? Raphael says, I love this topic. I remember a conversation where an audience was surveyed on how they perceived a speaker. In the first scenario, the speaker wore a suit with dress shoes, and the second, a suit with red sneakers. Guess which one was viewed more highly in regard? I don't know which one was, Raphael. I could see it going both ways. And it's going to depend on the audience too. And Brita, hey Brita, nice to have you with us. Say, I have an acquaintance who is binary. I still don't know the appropriate pronoun to use, and she gets totally offended when total strangers like the grocery store clerk don't call her they. And she scolds them. It is so counterproductive. She just expects people to know she wants to be called they. This is perfect. I'm putting my thoughts into words. That's such a great example, Brita, for so many reasons, and it's so live for us these days. And I think what happens is we live in this world of expectations, right? Like, I really get it that someone who's binary, or is perhaps that's non-binary because you're not sure on their, well, I don't really know the terms that well, but like this friend, I get it. Like it would be frustrating being called she when you want to be called he, or vice versa, or whatever. And part of what I notice is really interesting to me is I I know both women and men who occur. They present very one direction. So like I know a couple people identify as lesbians, and but like occur very masculine just in their presence, their energy. They dress masculinely. They kind of look a bit masculine with a bit of a feminine take, but all the same. And that's cool. That's totally fine. Like, and in fact, some of them I think spot on style, like Ellen a little bit. I wouldn't go as far as to call Ellen particularly masculine, but great style. And Ellen's style is what we would traditionally probably call more masculine as opposed to more feminine. This person that I'm thinking of would get, like Brita has just shared, really offended when people would call her a he. And the thing is, she's not being responsible at all for her own impact. Instead, she's wanting the world to kind of take the long road around finding out what her pronouns are before she's doing any of her own work. And it's fine. It's fine to have that expectation. In the same sense, it's fine to have whatever expectation you might want to have. Hey, Jay, how dare I? Exactly. How dare I? It's fine for her to hold that expectation, but like any expectation, there's going to be some consequences. If your expectation is that the world should somehow just know, even though you're presenting a particular way that you prefer to be referred to as she, her, that expectation is probably going to lead you to a lot of frustration. And if we were to take on leadership and be like, wow, I notice people often get my pronouns wrong, maybe there's something for me to be responsible for. Maybe what there is for me to do is to soften and to recognize, oh, I might be presenting a certain way. And that doesn't mean that they judge me or that there's anything wrong with it. Maybe that just means I should adjust my expectation. Or maybe I should start to tell people more often, hey, my preference is that you refer to me as this. I believe most of us, by and large, really just want to convey respect to one another. And even if it's not true, even if you're like, not fucking Ron, he's a jerk, I still hold that as my primary context. And so for a lot of people, the challenge I notice is when people don't relate to each other through that lens. If someone were to come to me and say, I guess refer to me as she, I wouldn't assume malice or ignorance on their part. What I would assume is, oh, they don't know. I'm a he, or I prefer they, or whatever it happens to be. So I love that you brought that into the space, Brita. It's a great example of this, right? Not being totally present to our impact. And it's not wrong that we're not present to it. It's just that it's there for us to be responsible for it. So we can take ownership of it, so we can take back our power and have a way more empowered experience. That's the juice of life. That's where leadership starts and ends. Hey, Katie, thanks for tuning in. That's where we're going to finish, because what am I doing now? I've got a call in a few minutes to, we're going to have someone come and pretty up Get Lit. Get Lit's the podcast, my podcast. If you don't listen to it, you should. It's awesome content. And all of these Friday shows get syndicated there. So if you're like, boy, I like that conversation, but it's a pain in the ass sitting in front of a video screen all the time, and I'd rather listen while I'm working out. Well, subscribe to Get Lit, and we put these conversations up there in audio, so you can just listen to audio format. And I'm meeting with a group to have them basically take the episodes and do more stuff with them. So right now I just kind of post a picture, and then we have a little sort of subheading, here's what the episode's about, and they're going to go through and hopefully like give a full transcript and put all of this nice stuff so it's easier for people to find and to find the podcast. I had a team doing this before, and they were terrible at communication. I would write them, and then I would inevitably have to follow up and be like, hey, did you get my email? And inevitably, this happened 4 different times, they'd respond and say, oh, can you let me know, Brito, what do you mean to the other forum? Like to Get Lit? I can put a link to Get Lit right here. Boom. I'd write these people and then say, oh, I'm so sorry. I thought I responded to your email, but I didn't. And then they would respond. And that just kept happening. And so there was no ownership there. Like I had to manage their process. It was a pain in the ass. I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. So hopefully these people will be better. That's what we're off for a conversation in now. If you don't already, follow me on Instagram, Evergrowth Adam. No, that's not me anymore. I think it's Adam_Quiney. There's only 2 Adam Quineys, so find the one that's me. And I hope you guys have an amazing weekend. Oh, the last thing, I've got a new infographic that I just put out. This one is called Growth versus Transformation. So we're distinguishing kind of that cone of predictability and the growth where you expand it versus transformation where you broaden your range. So if you're interested in learning more about that, seeing it visually represented, possibly serving other people by helping them see that same thing, you can get that by going here and clicking under lab and then resources. You got to sign up for the resource page, but then you'll get all the goodies, all my PDFs, and you only have to sign up one time and you can get them forever from the rest of now until eternity. And there's all bunch of cool infographics there. So if you're interested in that growth versus transformation, it's out now. It's hot off the presses. It's fire. Get in there. Have a great weekend, guys. Love you. Take care.